Hello there.
From Software is known to make pretty good bosses, and I'll be ranking top 10 best bosses. But before I do, please tell me down below what's your favorite boss, what's your top 10, your top 20, top 50, it doesn't matter. Starting off, we have Genichiro. I love this boss for many reasons. Not only was this rematch very much needed, but Genichiro is probably the most important boss in Sekiro itself. He's one of these rare gems where you'll force you not to perfect the game. Okay, don't get me wrong, you will not perfect the game, but to learn. You can't just roll, you must parry everything. His moveset is pretty diverse in the sense that he uses a sword, which has pretty long combos, and they're super satisfying to like parry and stuff, and that's just the best thing about Sekiro itself. And a bow where he shoots a bunch of arrows. You learn that you can deflect lightning right before his fight, which is the first time you come across lightning attacks anyways. He literally combines everything you've learned and will learn. I don't think there's any other boss in From Software that makes you understand the whole combat system in one boss. But don't get me wrong, you'll not come out of this fight and master parries and no-hit every single boss after him. No, but he'll just sit you in the right way. It will click. Sadly, we cannot finish him off here as he cowardly runs away, unlike a certain someone. Moving on, we have Malekith. Well, at first it's the Beast Kligerman, which by himself is pretty fun, but no way in hell is he a top 10 boss. But he definitely sets the style and difficulty that you should expect. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy this fight and the aggressiveness, but it's just what comes after this Ludwig-esque transition is where all the good stuff is. Malekith, which I think he has the coolest design, coolest boss design in Elden Ring. His moveset is so fun, and that's the point of these bosses, to be fun. And in case of Souls, challenging, which is balanced really well with him jumping, throwing black flame projectiles. I love these agile bosses, which most of this list actually consists of. Just agile bosses. My only gripe with this boss that he quite literally melts my health bar, which I'll admit is a skill issue, but thankfully this arena has a lot of unbreakable pillars, which does help a lot, similar to that of Ornstein and Smoke. Boss his size with his aggressiveness and agility just unmatched. Moving on, we have Ludwig from Bloodborne, and spoiler alert, he's the only Bloodborne boss on this list. And before you Bloodborne fans come at me in the comments, I will explain why later, but for now let's just all come in agreement how good this boss is. The hideous horseman creature is actually jarring to look at, like he's up there with the one reborn. Yet I love the design of him. First phase, he fights you as you would expect a horseman to fight, except when he jumps high up and you hope to God you don't get hit. That 50% of his health is gone. Probably the most iconic cutscene plays out, which From Software keeps trying to recreate and mimic.
You were at my side all along. My true mentor, my guiding moonlight.
Only time the Moonlight Greatsword is actually used by a boss, and it's done perfect. His moveset is simple, but by no means is it an easy boss. He's one of the hardest in Bloodborne. Ludwig uses the Moonlight Greatsword to its full potential and capability, but you actually get the Moonlight Greatsword after his boss, which is equally as strong as when Ludwig was using it. But hands down, the best thing about this boss, without a doubt, is the soundtrack. I wouldn't judge if you said you have this soundtrack on your Spotify list. Moving on, we have Relana from the Shadow of the Erdtree. This is the third time I've spoken about Relana, and I'm honestly running out of things new to say. So this is gonna be quick. I believe she has the best moveset and combos in the DLC. And also she's pretty well balanced, no overtop moves, no undodgeable attacks, double slash. Honestly, you can't get a more fair, brutal, hard fight than this. And I was so happy that you could actually use her twin swords from her remembrance, than them both having a different Ash of War, one fire and the other magic, with the same moves as Relana. Sadly, the bad thing about this boss is that she got no lore. Like, I mean, she don't got a cutscene, no dialogue. Similar to Gwyn, you just feel hollow when it's over. Moving on, we have Mesmer. Come on, he's the face of the DLC. You would expect him to be good, and he is, like, really good. Mesmer is basically Rykard in human form. He uses both fire and his inner snake, similar to Rykard, and he even becomes a huge ball of fire. Mesmer's first phase is, in my opinion, the better one out of the two, but they're really close. I like the first phase as it's less hectic. This skinny snake human really does love his delayed attacks, doesn't he? I love this boss's combos, although they seemingly never finish, and when they do, you would consider yourself lucky if you do manage to get a hit in. Releases his inner serpent, the attacks just never end. Bro, like, look at the amount of attacks here. He's above Relana for one reason: the importance in the lore. But the absolute worst thing about this fight is that you keep hearing
in the embrace of Mesmer's flame.
every single time you die, and you will die plenty of times. Moving on, we have Godfrey. This is the underrated boss I was talking about. I don't hear a single soul talk about how good Godfrey is. Okay, maybe I'm a big dum-dum and everyone's talking about how good he is and I'm just late to the party, but nothing less, this boss is amazing. His actions are very well telegraphed and slow. He has earth spikes which you can jump over and punish, attacks that quite literally cover the whole arena. There's just something so enjoyable about this fight, but I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe just the whole package itself. And second phase, Godfrey ditches the whole lion on his back and his armor to become a full-on punching machine. Here's where the difficulty really spikes. I was getting obliterated this second phase. I was getting one punched, body slammed. He's so strong he breaks apart the ground with his bare hands. Maybe he's a bit forgotten as he's right before the final boss, and most people like fight other bosses like Melania or Moog before reaching, you know, Godfrey and Radagon. But he still isn't Elden Ring's best boss. Artorias. Of course he was gonna be on this list. You can't have a top 10 boss list and not put Artorias. Like, he's once again the face of the whole DLC. His name is right there, so he should be good. And he's just like the next guy at number 3. Artorias definitely has one of the more sadder fights, with him trying to fight off the abyss with his doggy, which is a sad fight by itself. Maybe even the saddest fight. And Artorias gets corrupted and I don't know the rest, but the whole thing just messed up. He's the first like quick agile boss in DS1, maybe apart from Orange Team. He's definitely the harder end, at least for Dark Souls 1 stand. He'd be doing backflips, buffing himself up, which thank god is interruptible. For once, you're not fighting a demon or some giant where you can only see his legs. It's just a night one-on-one, and they are always the best type of fights. It just feels so fair, and it is. Artorias is one of the coolest characters, but just imagine if his other hand was not broken. Moving on, we have Slave Knight Gale. This red-caped man is, from what I understand, just an old man who wants your...
That thing, your dark soul.
He said it! He said it!
Gale is by far the best in Dark Souls 3, and that's pretty impressive as Dark Souls 3 has a lot of good bosses overall. Like, that's the best thing about Dark Souls 3 anyways. But now that I think about it, Gale is kind of similar to Artorias. I mean, they both wield their sword using one hand, both have same agility, not really same story, nah. But Gale is just better overall. He has more diversity using spells and using a crossbow in his second phase. Speaking of his second phase, I love how the whole atmosphere changes, lightning being struck down like it's night, and it's very rare that happens in From Software bosses. I love Gale's moveset. They are so fun to dodge, maybe not the red cape, but it's very manageable and don't make you panic roll like a certain someone. I really miss these type of fights, not super hard, but tough, and no over the top moves, just a good old dance between you and the boss. Moving on, we have Melania. Best Elden Ring boss, hands down, by far is the hardest here yet, and this boss feels so fair even though it isn't. Hear me out. She deals a stupid amount of damage, heals in every single attack, has 2 full health bars, but her poise is in an all-time low, and she gets staggered every other hit or attack that you do. And at least for the first phase, she's chill, so it is fair. Kind of. I did die multiple times, but for the most part I wasn't that angry, and I just wanted to continue fighting her as when it was over I was low-key sad. To be fair, she does have a few moves I'm not very fond of, but there is a certain way to dodge every single weird or unique attack that she has, so it is still manageable, and just isn't RNG. Other than those attacks, her attacks are simple and pretty well telegraphed. I know I'm making her sound like an easy boss, but no way in hell she is. She's in my top 2 best bosses and hardest bosses. If you guys didn't get the gist by now, I love one-on-one where the boss is the same size as you and you actually have some challenge, and Melania ticks all these boxes, but not quite as the number 1 spot. But as From Software has too many good bosses that just the top 10 isn't enough, we have a lot of honorable mentions, so get ready. Lady Maria, I believe, is the second best boss in Bloodborne. I beat her first try, but unlike other bosses that you beat relatively quick, she is memorable and sticks with you. We also have Grandpa German. Him and Lady Maria are the best 2 hunter fights. This is enough to make himself a spot on this list. Our Father, Nameless King, Freed, Father Gascoigne, Pontiff Sullivan, Radagon, and only Radagon. And you know what? Let's give some DS2 some love, is what I wish I could say. But since I haven't played the DLC, I'm sorry, I will get to it later, somewhere in the near future. There just isn't a single boss which will make it on this list, and not even a top 20 list, in the base game of course. Come on, we all know he's gonna be here. He's everywhere. Best bosses rankings, he's there. Hardest boss rankings, he's there. Not only in From Software rankings, just like best bosses in like the decade, he's up there. And for good reason too. He's so perfectly balanced in terms of difficulty and quality. He combines everything you've learned throughout the whole game into one boss. It's like a final exam. Sword fights, spear fights, glocks, lightning, even skills you would learn through skill points. And he just isn't a random someone that you only hear stories about. You actually interact with each throughout the whole game, and they are mostly wholesome. He's Genichio's granddaddy, he tells you to find the mortal blade and where to find it, talks to you with sake, and worst of all, when Ashina Castle goes all to hell and everyone's burning up and dying, he sadly dies. So you don't expect to fight him in the finale. Also fought in the same arena when, you know, it just gives off, spoiler alert for Metal Gear Solid 3 right now, spoiler alert, is when you fight the boss in the flower arena. Of course, it doesn't hit the same as Metal Gear Solid 3. I don't think anything will top it, except for its own remake, and maybe not even gonna top the same feeling. But it's just a perfect 1v1. And unlike his dishonorable grandson, he does not run away, and ultimately accepts his defeat.